Good morning. How are you? It's a fun day. It's a Saturday. It's almost time for Major League Baseball. That's always an exciting time of the year for sports media professionals, particularly particularly once you get into March. Um, Spring abounds with new possibilities, not only in baseball but for sports media professionals. So I just wanted to jump in here today on a Saturday, talk about it a little bit. It's exciting. I was going through some of the highlights today, some of the big stories of the day. I think a lot of people are I just read one story about the Las Vegas A's, and it's going to be interesting because a lot of people in Las Vegas are really clenching their teeth and fearing what's going to happen because it's going to be brand new for them. It's a lot of it is the construction and the congestion, and a lot of people are pretty scared in Las Vegas. There's obviously a lot of the great side about bringing a major league team to Las Vegas, and all of the tourism and all of the business and the economic development that creates, which is awesome, which is great wherever minor league baseball teams or major league baseball teams abound, wherever they relocate to, that's always fun. But the people there that live there are also thinking, is this going to be too much people? Too many people? Is it going to be too congested? So that's a consideration also. That's something people, I mean, they don't have to worry about it for 3 years because the A's are going to be in Sacramento for a few years. But that's going to be very interesting to see how the locals react in Las Vegas and how Major League Baseball and fans in general react to Las Vegas. So that's going to be interesting to see. Definitely interesting to see. But that's one of the storylines. The Dodgers, that's another storyline. I mean, they just in terms of talent, remember that video game 30 years ago? I played it when I was a kid, Baseball Stars. You ever play that? I mean, obviously the best, in my opinion, the best baseball video game was RBI Baseball, bar none, the best. And the original RBI Baseball, not the second one. That was the best Nintendo game ever. Still is a classic. It's great. But there was a game a little bit later than that, maybe 5-10 years later than RBI Baseball. It was called Baseball Stars. Leave a comment if you remember that game, Baseball Stars, even if you watch this after the live stream. Baseball Stars was a game where you could play games against the computer. You could win a game, and based on winning, you would get certain points or money in the game, and you could use that money to improve your players, give them more power, more speed, more strength, more hitting for average, or a pitcher, you could give them more speed. So you could improve your team and make them just a team of studs, just an all-star team where they're all maxed out to their best abilities. And that's what the Dodgers remind me of. I know the Yankees have done it, and I've been very critical of the Yankees for doing that over the years, of buying players, especially mid-season, going out and renting the best players, back to the days of Raul Mondesi and those guys, and the Yankees have done that for decades. They've got the money. Dodgers are the same way. So it's always interesting to see how they reload. I mean, Michael Conforto, a huge deal, $17 million for 1 year. Very similar to Teoscar Hernandez, who turned in a great season last year. And he's just such an underrated player in my mind. I mean, from his days back with the Blue Jays. I'm also so the Dodgers, I think, are stacked. The Dodgers are stacked. Let me know in the comments if you have to happen to join the live stream. Let me know what you think about the Major League Baseball season and some of the storylines that you're looking at. But the Dodgers being stacked is one. There's also some other things that I've thought about. In Toronto, I mentioned Teoscar Hernandez. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. going to be a free agent after the year. I think that's going to be a very interesting storyline. That's a franchise that has never quite gotten over that hump. They lost Teoscar a couple years ago. They've, had different guys come in and out, but Vladdy Jr. has been the mainstay over this run for 5, 6, 7 years, however it's been. I think it's about 6 or 7. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. But needless to say, just like his buddy Teoscar is in LA, or Teoscar was in LA, and Conforto is now in LA, he's primed to have a great season looking ahead towards free agency. It's in his best interest, obviously. So that's going to be interesting to watch what happens there. The Yankees, obviously there's been a report that Garrett Cole is going to be looked at. I think it's his elbow. That's always a concern. I've never been a fan of long-term contracts in general, but specifically Juan Soto, talking about Juan Soto. It's always great for the first few years, but does it ever work out for the team, for the organization in the second half, the out years of those contracts? It never does. Prove me wrong. Tell me one that has. I'm sure there maybe there is. But on the pitching side, gosh, that never works out. It never works out because there's always the injury possibility, especially now when pitchers get injured more now in this era of throw it as fast as you can. I was talking to a baseball manager the other day, and he's a minor league manager, and he was telling me that his players would come in and he would talk to them about pitching, and they would say, "No, my goal is to throw as fast as I can." You see the injuries. I mean, they speak for themselves. The way baseball is now, even though we're excited about spring training, there's so much anticipation. We're looking ahead towards it. The game now is certainly not what it was. I mean, when I was growing up in the 80s, the 90s, in my mind, it was a more cerebral game, a strategic game. And now with the launch angles and the different stats, the WAR and all this other garbage in my mind. It's garbage. It's garbage. I still prefer the managers that want to have a feel for their team. They want to have a feel for their ball club and know where to put guys and to help them succeed in a specific situation, as opposed to a spreadsheet giving you statistics and telling you where to play people and where to put them in. I think, although it was a great movie, Moneyball, I think, clouded the judgment of a lot of people. To bring in these 22-year-old hipsters that went to a great Ivy League college and help them run Major League Baseball clubs, I'm still not a fan. I still think having someone that's been around the game their entire life is a huge benefit, because there's so much that you don't see on a stat sheet. And especially now where huge contracts abound and where players, for the most part, are looking out for themselves, I think having a manager that can help that situational cohesiveness, to get a player to lay down a sacrifice bunt at a specific time, to get a pitcher to come in and get a crucial out. Obviously, that's been curtailed by some of the rule changes, which, again, we're excited about spring training. There's a lot of great things to look forward to for baseball season 2025. But the rule changes over the past 5 years, I've not been a fan. And I have to be honest, I wasn't a fan back when I was broadcasting professionally and they instituted the wild card. Not a fan. That one has turned out to be pretty cool. I would limit the amount of teams that make it to the postseason just to put more importance on the regular season. But I admit that one, the wild card has turned out to be pretty fun and kept more people involved in August, September, October. But the other, for example, interleague play, I still think is terrible. Still think it's terrible. We've always had interleague play. It was called the World Series, and that created that drama and that excitement. I don't need to see the Tigers playing the Reds in mid-June. I don't need it. I don't need to see it. I don't need to see the Nationals playing the Astros. I mean, the Astros should still be in the National League if you ask me, but I'm a traditionalist. One of the books over here is John Miller's great book, the great broadcaster John Miller, Confessions of a Baseball Purist. It's back there somewhere, and I'm with him. I'm with him. I should reread that now that we're into March and we're almost to opening day. So let me know what you think about the rule changes. Let me know what you think about some of the big storylines this year. It always comes down to the big markets, and then there's usually one or two small market teams that sneak in there. I mean, obviously in New York, you've got the Mets and Yankees, two teams that have spent a lot of money. In LA, you've got the Dodgers. But as you can see, there's always a team that can sneak through. For many years, it was the Royals. 15, 20 years ago with Billy Beane, it was the A's for a short period of time. It's always fun to see who's going to be that team. Maybe it'll be the Rays. I don't know. I don't know who it's going to be. That's the great thing about opening day is that you don't know who is going to be the big player, who's going to be the team that emerges and has a great start. The Pirates, something like that. We saw them get off to a great start. I think it was 2 years ago. So these are just fun things, and it's exciting. How should a sports fan be preparing if they're looking ahead to the season? Just read and watch everything you can, just to let you know the storylines. Obviously, programs like this, but online you can get anything. I'm a big fan of the MLB package because you can watch all the games. I would have done anything for that when I was a kid. When I was a teenager, I would have done anything to be able to watch all the games. Now that I'm an adult and I have a lot more responsibilities and other things in my life, that's when it's available, but it's still a lot of fun. And as a sports broadcaster, the way you improve is practicing. If you're preparing for your season, let's say you're a minor league broadcaster now, your season's not started yet. I mean, I can remember preparing for the Eastern League season, which would start beginning of April, and those games were brutal. It was cold. It was 30 degrees and windy, and the stadium had 700 people in it, and it was freezing. It's no fun at the beginning of April, but that's many places across the United States, especially in the Northeast. Ironically, I remember getting into, this is an aside, just because I'm having fun doing a Saturday live stream. I remember broadcasting for a team, and it was cold. It was really cold one night at the ballpark, and I was on the air, and I was describing the scene. People down here to my left, they're bundled up in a big blanket, two people cuddled together, trying to stay warm. Someone off to my right wearing a big black parka, holding with two hands a cup of hot coffee. I can see the steam coming off the coffee. I was describing it. I was describing what I was seeing to bring my listener into the action. I was broadcasting radio. We go to commercial break, and the general manager of the team taps me on the shoulder. Take off my headset. Hey, what's up? He's like, don't talk about the weather anymore. What are you, nuts? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm describing the scene. That's my job as a radio broadcaster. And he said, if you talk about the weather this way, you're going to keep the fans away. You're going to keep people home, and that's going to hurt our bottom line at the gate, and that's going to hurt revenue, and that's going to hurt the ball club. I understand his point, but I gave my audience much more credit than that. I knew it was cold out, and anyone in this town, in this area, They knew it was cold out. They could pop their head outside and say, wow, it's 30 degrees. They could look at the thermometer and tell. This is before the days of cell phones. But I gave my audience credit for knowing that it was cold. And this general manager didn't agree. So that was tough because I had broadcast 6 or 7 minor league seasons prior to that and never once been told what to say or what not to say on the air. And this was the first time. So we've talked about that type of issue a lot here on Sportscasters Club. Some of the challenges you face as a media professional, as a broadcaster, because truthfully, I worked for the team. They're the ones that paid me and signed my checks. So they had the right to tell me, as much as I disagree with it, they had the right to tell me what they wanted me to talk about and what they didn't. And I've talked a lot about that, about how our sports media professionals really independent. I remember doing at sportscastersclub.com a story on the 4th of July about that on Independence Day. Our sports broadcasters really independent. You're really at the mercy of who you work for. And so that was something interesting that I had to deal with in the minor leagues. Also, another thing I didn't love doing in the minor leagues, which I didn't do for one team I worked with, I did for another, was tarp duty. My feeling was that I was there to broadcast a game. I was there as a media professional. I was there to paint that word picture for my listener and bring them into the action. But if we had a rain delay and we sent it back to the radio station for regular programming, we had to put on our sloppy shoes and our sloppy clothes and get out there and pull the tarp onto the field or pull it off. I didn't like tarp duty. Didn't like it in the minor leagues. But just to give you an idea, if you're going to work in the minor leagues, that might be something you have to do. Another thing I didn't like in the minor leagues was, not always, but for one organization, they would have fireworks, which were great, excellent fireworks after the game while we were broadcasting our post-game show. And at the end of the fireworks, we had to go out there in the dark in the field and clean up all the exploded fireworks, all the little scraps and papers and shells that had exploded. We had to go out and pick them up. I didn't like that. I tolerated that one much more than I did tarp duty, because tarp duty was in the middle of my broadcast. I was trying to be professional. I dressed nicely, and then I'd have to get out in a sloppy field and run around trying to get the tarp on in the wind and the rain when I'm trying to broadcast a game. But these are all fun things that you've got to consider if you're going to broadcast minor league baseball. So I got on this tangent just because it's a Saturday morning. We're looking forward to baseball. I wanted to do the live stream, the first one here on this channel. So like the video, subscribe to the video if you found it fun. If you know anyone who's a baseball fan, if you know anyone who's a sports fan, share this channel with them, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. So it's been nice hanging out with you, talking a little baseball on a Saturday morning, and I hope to see you next time. All right. Have a great day. We'll chat with you then.